Thank you very much, Wojtek. So yes, I speak about information theory, and I describe models, and algorithm, and analysis. So, okay. And my main motivation is about realistic analysis on information theory, and precisely very simple algorithm, sorting and searching algorithm. Okay, so the plan of the talk. First, I describe motivation. Then I describe a general model of source, because source is main tool in information theory, because this is a mechanism which produces symbols and thus words. And after I describe the main result on the talk, and perhaps, if I have a little bit time, I describe the methods. First, motivation of the study. Of course, anyone in this room knows the classical framework for sorting. The main sorting algorithm, for instance, or searching, for instance, quicksort, search with a binary search tree, or insertion sort, all these algorithms deal with what we call keys and distinct keys. Of course, we wish to sort, so these keys belong to the same order set. And this main algorithm performs comparison and exchange between keys. And thus, the unit cost here is a key comparison, means comparison between keys. And now, when we wish to describe the algorithm, describe the behavior of algorithm, this algorithm depends only on the relative order between keys. And if it is so, you can always assume that the keys belongs to the set omega, the set of number between 1 and n. And then the input set is all the possible permutation about 1 n, and the input set is just the permutation set sigma n. And very often we assume that this set on this set we have uniform probability. Now, when you try to analyze the algorithm, to describe the behavior of this algorithm, it is very well known, and we study this algorithm with respect to the key comparison between keys, the key comparison performed by the algorithm. We can study this algorithm with respect to the worst case, but also, and it is our main interest here, in the average case. But previously, I recall, of course, the design of this algorithm. Perhaps everybody in this room knows it, but I describe it. So quicksort. So you have an array here. And you are interested in sorting this array, so you choose a pivot here, a pivot, and the partition algorithm places the pivot at its good place, definite place, and after this we have two subarrays. The left subarray gather all the keys that are less than the pivot, and the left right subarray gather all the keys which are larger than the pivot. And after, of course, if you wish to sort the total array, it is sufficient to sort the two arrays, the left subarray and the right subarray. So you have two recursive calls in the algorithm. Now, if you are interested in quick select, so quick select algorithm is a selection algorithm. That means that it returns the value of an element of the element of rank m. And what is the rank of an element? It is just the definite place that he has when the total array is sorted. So it is the same framework. So you have a pivot, and depending on the definite place of the pivot, with respect to the rank of the rank of the values that you look for. So there are three possibilities. You have finished, or you continue on one on the two subarrays. So now there is only one recursive call. Of course, all these algorithms are well known and well studied. And now I recall the main result about the analysis of quicksort and quickselect. And here, the unit cost is the key comparison, and the total cost of the algorithm is the total number of key comparison. For quickselect, it is well known that the mean number of comparison is 2n log n, and for quickselect, it depends on the value of m. If m equals 1, this means that you look for the minimum. If m equals n, look for the maximum. And also, this is a sort of general quick select, which is called quick round. That means that your rank m is random between 1 and n. And so the mean number of k comparison here is known. You see here that quick select is of order n, not of order n log n as a quick sort, but just of order n. And of course, the constant here depends on the value of m. Here, in this talk, we are especially interested when in the case where m is linear with respect to n, and with the coefficient here, alpha, which, of course, belongs in the unit interval, 0, 1. And when alpha is fixed, so here, this means that we look for the alpha quantile, and for instance, when alpha is equal 1/2, so this means that we look for the median, for instance. And of course, the cost, the complexity of the algorithm depends on alpha, and here the constant is kappa of alpha, and now I describe this constant. This constant kappa depends on the entropy h of alpha, and this admits this expression, and you see here the graph of kappa of alpha, and you see that it is intuitive that the maximum cost is obtained for alpha equal 1/2. And for instance, here for alpha equal 1/2, we have this constant here. So these algorithms are very well known about with respect to their complexity in the average case. But here, we are interested by a more realistic framework. Previously, the keys are just some abstract things, just keys, and we are not interested in the precise structure of the keys. But now, we are interested in this structure. So, keys are now viewed as words. This is realistic to see keys as words. And the words are built on some alphabet, sigma, and the keys are viewed as infinite words on some alphabet. And of course, the alphabet must be ordered because we are interested in sorting. Now, the words are compared with respect to the lexicographic order. This means now that the realistic unit cost is no more the comparison between keys, but comparison between symbols. And for instance, if we are interested in comparing two words, A and B, what is the cost of comparing these words? For instance, in this case, we have two words. A and B. And if we are interested to know what is the largest word, so we compare the first symbol, so the first symbol, so they are equal, the second symbol, they are equal, the third symbol, they are equal, and now you continue, and the fourth symbol are not equal, and B is larger than A. That means that A, the first word, is larger than the second one. So here, what is the number of symbol comparison performed? This number is equal to the largest common prefix between these two words. This length is equal to 3. Then we have one more comparison to obtain the true comparison between this word. So here, the coincidence, this means the length of the largest common prefix of two words is equal to 3, and we perform a number of comparisons between symbols equal to 4. So this is this cost, which is studied inside the main algorithm that I previously described. Okay? And of course, we are interested in the average case, so we are interested in the mean value of the number of symbol comparisons performed by this algorithm. And what is interesting is to answer the question, how is Sn compared to Kn? I recall that K sub n is the number of key comparisons performed, the mean comparison, the mean number of key comparisons performed, and we wish to compare Sn to Kn. This is a question which is asked by Sedgwick. So it is interesting to have a realistic analysis of this algorithm. So with respect to the true comparison between symbols, but also this is interesting to have this analysis because it allows to compare this class of algorithm, quicksort, quickselect, with other text algorithms. Of course, there are two main data structures for sorting a set of words: the trie, which is used for dictionary algorithm, and this dictionary algorithm perform with symbols. They are as dictionary does, and I wish to compare this structure of trie with binary search tree, which is of course closely related to quicksort, because when you perform quicksort, the tree which is built about the tree of recursive call, which is built for quicksort, is exactly a binary search tree. So in fact, in this talk, I wish to compare the trie and the binary search tree when I consider these two structures with respect to the same cost, which is the cost between the comparison between symbols. I recall what is a trie. So a trie is a tree which is built for using it as a dictionary. And like a dictionary, you have at the root, you consider all the here I have a set of 16 words on the alphabet A, B. And here you put on the left all the words which begin with A, on the right all the words which begin with B, and you continue now here with all the words which begin with A but now stripped of their first symbol, and now all the words which begin with B strip of their first symbol, and you continue until the word is alone to share a given prefix. Here, for instance, I stop here because the word L is the only word in this set of words which begin with AA. On the contrary, for instance, here, I continue the splitting of words because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 words which begin with the prefix A, B, 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 B. So I continue here in this node because I must separate the word. So, of course, the trie structure is defined by precise rules. We have an alphabet, we have a finite set of words, and the trie built on this finite set is defined by the three rules. The first two rules just is ending rules, and the main rule is here the rule which splits with an internal node and subtrie. Okay. This structure is very interesting because it permits. It is easy to see that with this structure, it is easy, for instance, to insert words, to suppress words, to search words, and it is a very good structure for a dictionary. Of course, we have another structure for comparing words. This is, of course, the binary search tree built on the same on the sequence of words, and here I describe the BST, which is built on the same sequence of words as previously. And here we have this binary search tree. We begin with the first word, and here we compare each word to A. And for instance, the second word here, B, is larger than A, so you put here on the left, on the right. Okay, this is clear. But now we wish to compare trie and BST, and we are interested to the cost of BST with respect to the symbol comparison. So I give an example. For instance, I am interested by the cost of the insertion of the key F into this BST. So I suppose that previously the keys A, B, C, D, E are already in this BST, and I am interested to inserting F. So of course I compare F and A, and for comparing F and A, I need 7 symbol comparison, because you see that the common prefix between F and A is equal to, the length is equal to 6, and you need an extra comparison between symbols in order to compare A and F. So we need 7 comparisons for comparing F and A. Now you continue, and you need 8 comparisons for comparing F and B, because the length of their common prefix is equal to 7. Now it's easier with C, because C and F differ with their first symbol, so we need only one comparison to compare F and C. So finally, the total cost for inserting F inside the BST is equal to 16. And this is this cost that you are interested to study in the BST. So for instance, the path length of the BST, the total path length of the BST is the total path length with respect to the number of symbol comparison. And of course, this total path length with respect to the number of symbol comparison is equal to is the same that the mean cost for quicksort. So now I describe a general model of source because, of course, you are interested in the analysis of algorithm about words, and the first thing to do is to describe the model which permits to produce words. And this is called, in information theory, a source. So what is a source? So a source is a mechanism in information theory which produces one symbol by unit of time, and the time is discrete, and at each top of the time, you produce one symbol. And of course, when the time goes, so you produce words. So a general source produces here infinite words and on some ordered alphabet, which is assumed here to be finite, and the source is completely described by what I call PW, which is very important in this talk. PW is just the probability that a word produced by the source begins with some prefix W. So the words are infinite, but the prefixes are finite. And it is easy to see that the set of PW, when W describes all the possible finite prefixes, defines completely the source. The only assumptions that we make is that the supremum of PW when W is a prefix of given length k tends to 0 when k tends to infinity. Now, I describe the parametrization of a source, which is very useful in this talk. For each k, each length k, we consider the probability PW, where W is a prefix of length k, and the probability are sorted with respect to the order about the prefix W. So, what I do exactly, this is the following. I take here the example of an alphabet with two symbols, A and B. So, because A is less than B, and P sub A plus P sub B equal 1, because, of course, one word begins by A, with A or with B. So we have P sub A plus P sub B is equal to 1. So I place here on the unit interval the length P sub A, then after the length P sub B, and this defines two intervals that I code by A and by B. So I have here a subdivision of the unit interval. And here it is for k equal 1, because I consider only here prefix with length 1. Now I continue now, and because each word which begins by A begins with A or AB, so there is a subdivision of this interval here coded by A into two intervals. The first one is coded by AA, and the second one is coded by AB. And you continue, and of course, for k equal 2, we have this subdivision. And of course, I explained here when k now is equal to 3, how to subdivide this interval AB. So what I do here, I define two other probability, PW minus here, and PW plus here. PW minus is just the sum of probability P sub alpha, where alpha is just a prefix of length k, which is smaller than W. For instance, if I am interested here by W equal BA, PW minus is just this interval. And PW plus, it is the same, but now we consider here the prefix of length k, which is larger than W. For instance, with the same W equal BA, PW plus here is this length. Now, and what happens when I consider subdivision more and more refined? So this means that I consider in infinite words, x, for instance, and I consider all this prefix W, and when W tends to x, this means that the length become larger and larger. we have two subsequence. The sequence PW minus is an increasing sequence, and this sequence here is decreasing. So we have two adjacent subsequence, and there is just a common limit to these two subsequence. And this limit here, I call it P of x. In a sense, P of x is just the probability that an infinite word of the source is smaller than x, because it is a limit of Pw minus when W tends to x.
So you will define the probability on the second layer based on probability on the first layer, in the stick breaking process on the left-hand side?
Yes?
Right, on the left-hand side is the first layer, right? So how to generate the second layer from the first layer? Can you give me such sampling rules or the way you define it recursively, the probability from the second layer from the first layer?
So you have this.
So for example, the probability of prefix of AB
Yes?
is depending on the probability of the prefix of A and followed by B.
Yes?
So what's the rule to describe that kind of
Oh,
relation?
so the rule is defined by the source.
Yeah.
So here I does not define the source. The source is given to me, and I describe a sort of manner to describe it in another way. So
I think we have to wait to see the next slide.
So what is given to me is P sub A, P sub B. For instance, here the source tells me P sub A is equal to this, P sub B is equal to this, and all because this is clear that the sequence of PW defines the source. Okay.
Because the left-hand side is very similar to the stick breaking process in representing the Dirichlet process. Right. Never mind. Go.
Yeah.
Okay, but so the thing here which is important that it is a parametrization here of a source. So I continue on the next slide. But so the source is given to me, and I just wish to have another manner to describe it.
But you need to guarantee the consistency between different layers. Right.
Richards is more general, yeah. So the source could be anything.
Yeah, but I mean, a source when it's given to you, you have finite parameterization of description of it, right? You cannot say I have infinite description of the model, right? It's not computational feasible.
Yeah, but at this stage, she's not postulating any particular way.
No, it's a general source.
It's completely general.
Okay.
And then she's specializing.
Yeah, we need to expect a parameterized finite.
So now I have this. I define this quantity P of x, which is related to each x. So such each infinite word each infinite word created by the source have this P of x. Now what I do with this? I consider now the set of infinite words emitted by the source, because, for instance, perhaps the source is not able to produce a word which begins, for instance, by 3A, for instance, at the beginning. So I consider now the set of the infinite words which actually emitted by the source, and in this set, the function P, which I defined previously, is strictly increasing. Of course, it is outside some exceptional subset. What is the exceptional subset? For instance, of course, you see here that this word here, you have two manners to define it. this is the smaller word which begin with BB or the largest word which begin with BA. So of course, on these separation points, you have some the function p is not increasing, but except on outside this exceptional subset, and which is important that this exceptional subset is denumerable. So outside this exceptional subset, you can invert the function p because it is strictly increasing, and you invert it, and now if you invert it, you say that each word is attached with some real u. We invert the relation u equal p of x with x equal m of u, and now m is a function which between the unit interval and the set of infinite words. This means that now each word produced by the source is defined by some u, real u, real of the unit interval, and the real u is the parameter of the word. So now each word can be described by this parameter. And now this is very interesting because the map M is a parametrization of the source, and more precisely, via this mapping, it is the same to drawing a word inside the source, or uniform drawing a parameter u inside the unit interval. Of course, this is very easy to do. And now, when you have drawn your parameter u inside the unit interval, you use, of course, the function m. Function m can be very difficult. Perhaps it is very complex function, but this is a way to have a very easy process to draw a word inside a source. And what you have also, that for any prefix w, the set of parameter u for which the word begins with w now is just an interval with endpoints pw minus, pw plus. For instance, here, if I am interested, for instance, in the prefix BA, I have attached to this prefix an interval, here, this interval, and I call this interval the fundamental interval of the prefix. Okay, and now, how are these fundamental intervals? And I give an example for two memoryless sources. For instance, for the easiest source, the memoryless source on alphabet AB, where the probability of emitting A is equal to the probability to emitting B, 1/2 each. And now, here I describe the fundamental interval on the diagonal. Here, so here this is the interval corresponding to words which begin with A, which begin to B. And for instance, this small interval here is the set of parameters for which the word begins with A, B, of course. And it is the same. I give also another example of another memoryless source on ABC with here now probability 1/2 for emitting A, 1/6 for emitting B, and 1/3 for emitting C. And we have exactly the same general setting. For instance, here, the set, the fundamental interval here is relative to words which begin with B and after A. Okay, this is fundamental interval. In this memoryless case, we see that we have regular splitting. That means that each fundamental interval is divided with given proportion to give rise to a fundamental interval for the following length. But of course, this is not always the case, and now I describe more general sources. Now, what is a general source? I describe now a general class of natural instance of sources, which I call dynamical sources. They are related to a dynamical system. And here, so what is a dynamical system? It is a dynamical system of the interval. Here, I have a graph. Sorry, I have a graph. So, yes, I have a graph of a dynamical system with 3 branches. The first branch is corresponding to the first interval, and now on the second interval, the shift map is defined on another way, and on the third interval, the map is defined with another way. So we have here which is called a dynamical system. We have the unit interval here. The unit interval, and it is in fact a transformation, a map from the unit interval to the unit interval. Now I choose a real x, for instance here, and I use the shift map t, and I produce the trajectory of x. The trajectory of x is given by x, t of x. So for obtaining x, t of x from x, I consider here the graph, and I use the bisectrice to have here t of x here, and I continue t of x here. I have t square of x. I report here, and here I have a trajectory. The beginning of the trajectory, x, t of x, t square of x, t to the 3 of x, and so on. And now I decide not to be interested by the total trajectory, but only on the interval where the trajectory passes. And now I decide to code by A the first interval, by B the second interval, and by C the third interval. And now I only keep the information of the unit of the interval where the trajectory passes. So here, x, the first x is in the third interval, so I code by C. The second t of x is in the second interval, so I code by B. The third is in the first interval, I code by A, and etc. So here I obtain a coding and a coding of the trajectory, and in fact I obtain a word. And here it is the word m of x, which is here C, B, A, C, etc. So here I obtain a model of a source, which I call here a dynamical source, because it is a source which is created by a dynamical system. Which is very interesting in this sort of source. This is the fact that this is a quite general model which encompasses, of course, very simple classes of source. For instance, as soon as the branches are affine, you obtain here memoryless source. For instance, I describe the memoryless source, which is relative to the unbiased memoryless source over over the alphabet with 2 symbols, and here the memoryless source, which is relative to 3 symbols, with PA equal 1/2, PB equal 1/6, and PC equal 1/3. So I describe here. It is very simple. I take the probability and I draw the complete linear affine branch. And here, this is a description of memoryless source seen as dynamical source. And now here, for Markov chain, this is the same process, but now it is not exactly affine branches, but affine piecewise affine branches. And you have here a description of a Markov chain seen as a dynamical source. But of course, here I recover simple sources because they are relative to a dynamical system with affine branches. But now, when the branches are no longer affine, when they possess curvature, so of course this entails correlation between symbols. And for instance, here this is a very classical dynamical system, which is relative to the continued fraction expansion. And here you see that your branches are now no more affine. And when you are here, you see that the shift T change the distribution, and you have here this interval which is brought into the total interval, but now the curvature change the distribution of the input and entails correlation between symbols. So now, for any source, so I describe here a subclass, very interesting subclass of sources, but now I come back to general sources. For a general source, it will be very interesting to use as analytic tools what I call the Dirichlet series of probability, which is called lambda of S. And lambda of S is just the sum over all possible prefixes. W belongs to sigma star of the PW, but now I put here at the exponent a complex S, and here the S here is the variable. So this is a generating sort of generating function of the source, but it is of Dirichlet type because the variable is in the exponent. And for memoryless sources, which probability is pi, it is easy to see that this Dirichlet series of probability emit a very simple form, which is quasi-inverse 1 over 1 minus lambda of S. Lambda of S is just the Dirichlet series, but of probability here at the level 1. For Markov chain, lambda of S admit also a sort of quasi-inverse form, but now it is no more a scalar here, but it is a matrix. This is a matrix P of S. P of S is just the transition matrix of the Markov chain, but now where each probability, Pij, is at the power S. And it is easy to see that lambda of S admits this expression for Markov chain. And which is very interesting here now for the particular case of dynamical sources, the fact that lambda of S is also has also a sort of the same form, which is a sort of quasi-inverse form, but now here you have a scalar, now you have a matrix, and now you have some which is more complicated, more complex, which is here now an operator. But we have in these three cases lambda of S, which is a quasi-inverse, and which is it will be very important in our methods. Okay, now I describe the result. And so the main result were some of our main results were about try or about BST or about quick select. So the try structure is very well studied, but only for particular sources, mainly memoryless source or Markov chain. For the number of symbol comparison in quicksort and in quick select, there are already known results, but only in the particular case of memoryless source. There are results about Janssen, Phil, and Nakama, and also only for particular algorithm, quicksort, but only not for quick count general, for general quick count, but only for quick min, quick max, and quick round. Here we have general result about the mean comparison of this algorithm, and we have this result in the case of a general source and a general algorithm of the class. Of course, we have a general result, but there are also precise restrictive hypotheses on the source and sufficient conditions under which this hypothesis hold. And we have also a very precise form of the constant in the analysis. In the case of the try, we are interested in the mean path length of the try, and for a source which is lambda tame, which means this is a good source, but this is not too restrictive hypothesis for this source. But in this case, the mean path length of a try built on n words is over the n log n. But here we have the constant before, which is the inverse of the entropy, because for such sources, lambda tame source, the entropy exists, and the entropy can be seen as the limit of something which involves the PW. So our first result is a generalization of the path length of a try, but for a general source, provided it will be lambda tame. For quicksort, or it is the same for the binary search tree, with the path length of binary search tree with respect to the number of symbol comparison, as I explained previously, it is no more true that the quicksort, when it is analyzed with respect to the number of symbol comparison, it is not true that it remains of order n log n. You see that it is now of order n log square n. And the extra factor log n is due to the fact that we take into account the number of symbol comparison and no longer only the number of key comparison. Okay, and the constant before is, as previously, the inverse of the entropy. So you have the result that compared to the number of key comparison, we have an extra factor of order log n, and compared to the try, we have also an extra factor of log n. So if we wish to sort a set of words, and if you have to choose the BST or the try, the result here tells you that the try is better than the BST. Now, if we are interested in quick count, so the mean number of symbol comparison performed by the algorithm quick count alpha. I recall that quick count alpha is quick select when the rank m is order alpha n, and n is the number of words. So here we see that the order remains n. So previously, when we take into account the number of symbol comparison, quicksort, so we have an extra log n factor. It is no longer the case for quick select, and quick select remains of order n. But of course, the constant before n change, and now the constant, which depends of course of alpha now and of the source, and we see that we have here PW, alpha of course, because the complexity depends on alpha, and we have here mu W, which is thus the middle of the fundamental interval relative to W, and we have also the function L, which is a function which involves a sort of modified entropy function. Okay, so there are precise constant in the binary source. For instance, we have this expression for the constant for quick min and quick max, for quick round, and it is important to see, for instance, that numerically we have here a constant which is near 5, here near 8, which is a constant relative to the number of symbol comparison, and this constant must be compared to the constant of the number of key comparison, which is in the case of quick min or quick max is equal to 2, and here for quick round equal to 3. So we have here 8 instead of 3. Here we have 5 instead of 2, and this is a measure of the cost, of the extra cost of symbol comparison. Generally, if we are interested in the constant rho of alpha, which is the constant of quick count, how can be compared to the constant of quick count in the case of k comparison? So I recall here the plot of the constant kappa of alpha, which is the plot of the constant which is the constant of the number which intervenes in the mean number of k comparison, and this plot must be compared to the plot of rho alpha, and which is, so I give 4 examples for 4 memoryless sources. The first is the NBS source with 2 symbols. This is the first example. And now here with 3 symbols, for 4 symbols. And now for the last case is the case where we have an alphabet with 2 symbols but biased. The first symbol has probability 1 over 3, and the second has probability 2 over 3, and we obtain this one. So you see in all the cases, and in the sense that the rho alpha is a sort of fractal deformation of the first curve here. This curve. This curve here is a sort of fractal deformation of this curve, and of course here, which is interesting, that we have no more the maximum complexity. Here it is no more that it is for the median, but here for something like this. So we have a very interesting question about the function rho of alpha. For instance, is rho is differentiable, is it older, and so on. Okay. And now I just 10 minutes about the description of the methods. So there are 3 main steps for the analysis of the mean number of symbol comparison. The first step is algebraic. So we work inside the Poisson model, and this means that we are the number of words that we are interested to study as input the number of words are not fixed, is not fixed. It is a random variable which follow a Poisson law. And it is easy in this model to obtain a nice expression for the mean number of symbol comparison in this model. In the second step, which is also algebraic, we transfer, we change the model, and we use now the model where the number of keys is fixed, equal to n, and with the help of the first step, we obtain a nice expression for S sub n, an exact expression. But so it is nice because it is exact, but now it is not easy to obtain the asymptotic from this exact formula. And in this third step, which is an analytic step, we are interested in the asymptotics, and now the expressions are no more exact, but they are interesting because we see the asymptotics, and the two first steps are valid for any source. But now in the third step, we must add some restrictive hypothesis on the source in order to obtain to perform the analytic step. So now. So our first step, we obtain the mean value in the Poisson model, and now if some easy process, which is called algebraic depoissonization, we obtain the mean value in the Bernoulli model. Bernoulli model means that now the number of words is fixed. And now, if we are interested in the asymptotic, there are two possibilities. We have sort of a diagram, because which is interesting for us in this mean value, asymptotic mean value in the Bernoulli model. This means we are interested in the asymptotic where the number of words is fixed, and we see that it is possible to have two ways, this ways or this ways. But here we prefer to have this way. This is why we have three steps: the first step, the second step, and the third step. So what is interesting in the Poisson model? So what is the definition of the Poisson model? The Poisson model is you have now the number of words or the number of keys is drawn according to the Poisson law. This is this law. Here. And now, when you have chosen the number of keys, so the n words are now independently drawn from the source. And we call that it is easy to draw words from the source. It is sufficient to draw the parameter of the word u inside the unit interval, and then to use the parametrization of the source via the function m. And there are two nice properties in the Poisson model about the number of words which have a restrictive property. And for instance, if you are interested in the number of words whose parameter V belongs to some sub-interval AB, this number of words, this means the number of words whose parameter V belongs to the interval AB, follow also a Poisson law. And the second interesting thing is that when we consider two sub-intervals which are disjoint, the two variables, the first variable relative to the interval AB and the second variable relative to the interval CD are independent. This is why this is very interesting. It is very more easy to do the analysis in the Poisson model. So perhaps it is. So first I study the trie in the Poisson model. So in the Poisson model, it is easy to see that I am interested in the size and in the path length of a trie. And it is easy to see that all these parameters, the size here, r, or the path length, t, can be described with the function, the variable nw. What is the variable nw? The variable nw is the number of words which begin with prefix w. And in the Poisson model, for instance, the cardinality nw follow a Poisson law of parameters zpw. Why? Because nw is a number of words which begins with prefix w, and the words which begin with prefix w are words which, whose parameter belongs to a sum-interval, which is a fundamental interval. So this is why, for instance, these two parameters are easy to deal in the Poisson model. And for instance, you have this mean value for r, the size, and for t, the path length in the Poisson model. And you see that you have as a function of pw. Okay? So just perhaps I give the expression of the mean number of comparison now for an algorithm, a general algorithm. What is the mean number of symbol comparison for an algorithm, general algorithm in the Poisson model? So I say that this is this expression. So I describe now why it is this expression. Here, I am interested by pi sub z. What is pi sub z? Pi sub z is the mean number of k comparison between two words. The first word is a word whose parameter is close to u, and the second word is a word whose parameter, t, is close to t. Here, when I know the position between two words, the first word is close to mu, the second word is close to mt, I know that the number of symbol comparison which are needed to compare this word is the coincidence between mu and mt. So I take the mean number of k comparison, I multiply by the coincidence between mu and mt. This gives me the mean number of symbol comparison need to compare a word, the first word which is close to mu and the second word which is close to mt. And now it is sufficient to take the integral over the triangle which gather all the possible parameters ut, for which we have u of less than t than 1. And now it is the first formula which I begin with, and now I am interested to suppress the role of gamma because it is not easy to perform the analysis with this, and it is easy to see that I have an alternative expression of the mean number of comparison in the Poisson model, which is now. You see the difference between this formula and this one. At change, gamma now is no more does not exist here, but it is replaced by the fundamental triangle. What are the fundamental triangle? The fundamental triangle are exactly the triangle which are built on fundamental interval. Here I recall that, for instance, an example of fundamental interval. And I have an alternative expression for the number of the mean number of symbol comparison and the mean number of k comparison. For the mean number of k comparison, I take the mean number of k comparison near u and near t, and I take the integral. And I obtain, of course, the mean number of key comparison. But now, if I am interested by the mean number of symbol comparison, I take the same function, but instead of taking the integral one time over t, I take the integral for each w, for each on each triangle, and I take the sum. So you see the difference between the mean number of symbol comparison and the mean number of key comparison. So this is the starting point of this analysis. So when I see, well, perhaps I, so it's I must so it's too long, and it is easy to see, to perform the analysis and see that, for instance, that the mean number of symbol comparison for each quicksort or quick count is this expression. This is the sum of over all the prefixes on each fundamental triangle of some function, which is a function here f1. It is a function of exponential type, and here I take here the variable is z, the parameter of Poisson model, and here I have y minus x, and there are two cases. For quicksort, the interval xy is the interval ut, so I have here t minus u. But for quick count, quick val or quick count, here I have y which depends of alpha, and y is the maximum of alpha and t, and x is the minimum of alpha and u. But I have, you see, that I obtain here for quicksort or for quick count or quick val. It is a sort of algorithm which is close to quick count. The same formula, and here we have only the difference between y and x, which depend on the interval. So this is the analysis of the Poisson model. Now, if I am interested in when the number of keys is fixed, I must expand f0 and f1. f0 is important for the try. f1 it is important for quick sort and the quick select. It is easy to transfer the result from the Poisson model to the Bernoulli model, because I have a relation between S sub n and S tilde of z, and this gives me an exact formula of S sub n, which is an alternating sum, which now here I have also a binomial coefficient, and here I have interesting series var pi, and var pi is of Dirichlet type and depends on the algorithm and on the source. And what is, for instance, what is the function var pi? It depends. For min passings, try or BST, var pi is very close to the function lambda of S. For the try, var pi, the function var pi is exactly lambda of S multiplied by S. For the BST, the function var pi is lambda of S divided by this, but I recall lambda of S is the Dirichlet series of the fundamental interval. And now for quick val or quick count, the expression is more involved, but this is also the sum on the fundamental triangles. For the asymptotic analysis, now I replace the alternating sum by an integral, because this is just an using residue formula, because here you interpret this here. This is by residue of this expression. And now, what is interesting in this expression that you can shift the integral, and you can take into account the singularity of this integral. Okay, and of course, what is important here, it is the first singularity, and here the first singularity on the left occurs at when real part of S is equal to 1. And for in order to obtain the behavior of the series var pi near real part of S equal 1, we compare var pi to other directed series. For Tri and BST, I have already said that var pi is close to lambda of S, so I am interested in the behavior of lambda of S. And for QuickVal, the function var pi is related to another directed series, which is the series pi of S. And you see that the difference between pi of S and lambda of S, pi of S, is just the sum of pk of S. Pk is a supremum of Pw when W is of given length. Okay, so with this sort of thing, in fact, we obtain, it is easy to, it is not so easy, but it is possible to conduct the analysis. And for instance, for QuickVal, the result of QuickVal or QuickCount is obtained as soon as the source is pi tame. This means that pi of S is tame. And what means a function to be tame? This means that it is analytic and of polynomial growth when the modulus of S tends to infinity. So most of the natural sources are p-tame, pi-tame. This means that for most of the natural source, our result of quick select will hold. Okay? And now for when I am interested in the mean path length for Tri of BST, so the function var pi are related to the function lambda of S, and I am interested in the behavior of lambda of S. For any natural source, lambda of S has a singularity at S equal 1, but I say that the source will be lambda tame if the dominant singularity is at S equal 1, and this is the source system when this singularity is also a simple pole. Now, in this case, there is a double pole for this series, a triple pole for this series, and this is why we have a double pole. So we have an expression, asymptotic expression in n log n, and here in n log square n. This is why we have an extra factor of log n for the BST, because we have a triple pole here and instead of a double pole here. But this result can hold only if lambda of S is tame on the left of the real line, of the vertical line, real part of S equal 1. And there are different possible regions on the left where lambda of S is tame, and there are three situations, in fact. The first situation where we have here S equal 1, but we have its sort of hyperbolic region on the left of S equal 1, where the function lambda of S is tame. Here we have a very nice situation where there is a total vertical strip which is free of pole, and where lambda of S is also tame. And here we have a sort of strange situation where we have many poles which are regularly spaced. And these three situations exist for memoryless source. For the memoryless source, the situation here does not occur, but these two situations occur. And the difference between situation 1 and situation 3 is due to arithmetic behavior of the probability. It depends if the ratio log pi over log pj are rational or not. And if they are not rational, the situation here happens only if there is a ratio which is badly approximable by rationals. So this is the situation for memoryless source. This situation is not possible, but these two situations are possible. And for a general source, what happens? And for instance, for dynamical sources, this situation happens in a very general situation. This situation does not happen except if the dynamical source is in fact a memoryless source or a Markov source. And this situation also can happen if there is an extension of the condition, which is already true for memoryless source, if sort of a situation which is an extension of the condition for memoryless source. So we see that for the dynamical source, this is important for dynamical source because you can provide sufficient condition, and we obtain sufficient condition for which this situation occurs, and this situation occurs. So conclusion. So we have proved that for any lambda tame source, the mean path lengths of twi and BST are of this order. N log n for the twi, n log square n for the BST. We can extend our result for sources which are not tame, for instance, intermittent source. But for this intermittent source, so the twi now, the path length of the twi now is of order n log square n, but it is always better that the BST, which is now of order n log to the 3 to the n. Now we have proved also that for any reasonable source, the complexity, the mean number of symbol comparison in quick count is always of order n. And finally, this study is sort of the first study for a long-term research project. Our project is to revisit the complexity result of the main classical algorithm. For instance, all the classical algorithm for sorting and searching. And now, but in this analysis, we wish to take into account the number of symbol comparison instead of the number of key comparison. And of course, this type of analysis is more realistic. And the second project is to provide a sharp analytic classification of source. You see that lambda of S, the Dirichlet series of the source, is a very general and precise tool which is used in our analysis. And this sort of Dirichlet generating function of the source is a tool which transfers probabilistic property of the source into analytic property of lambda of S, and we wish to have a sort of classification of source with respect to analytic property of lambda of S. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions? All tired? Any questions? Okay, let's thank Brigitte for this beautiful and intellectually challenging talk.
Thank you.